All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be connected to you time and again. We are all based in, I think, many different places and many different countries, I should say. This online gathering has turned out to be very different because it made a lot of, different feeling in the way the scholars and then the academics and students are participating in this, and that you don't need much of the resource to actually organize this, because the resource has been distributed to everyone's access. So you just need to make a call and then make connection to right people and then choose the right time, then things happen. So this has been possible because of the ICT that we are all connected with. So ICT, information communication technology, has made a difference in the way we live now, in the way we learn, we teach, we communicate, we travel, we manage knowledge, many different things. Maybe for that matter, maybe the carbon footprint is also going to be less, I think, than before, because people will travel perhaps less because of this corona virus pandemic, that people now afraid of traveling. Maybe at least for a few years, traveling will be less. But ICT has, I was just thinking, if the pandemic had taken place when we did not have this kind of connection, what would we be doing? Perhaps we'd be reading books, okay? We'd be doing other things, but with the ICT, we're engaged actively in this kind of, activities. So I think this panel discussion has a right choice of topic, that is ICT in education. I mean, ICT has made a difference in every sphere of life, but how has it made a difference in education? How it affects education, how it influences education, or how education also influences ICT? Maybe that is also another way of looking at it. So let us discuss. Today we have, the panelists who have been studying, been researching, ICT. Sometimes I try to find a common word, common phrase, common expression to cover all these things, but it's so difficult. Digital technologies, ICT, online, this, IT. So there's so many names. Whatever we call, I think all this or the other are part of the same domain that humans have created, innovated. So let me first welcome all of you, the participants and the panelists. Before we start the discussion, I will introduce the panelists here. Although I think none of them are actually unfamiliar. Everybody in this panel is well known to all the ELT colleagues in Nepal, but to give some more details of what they have done and what they've achieved or what they've contributed, I think it's good to know some details about who they are. I'll begin with, I'll make it short, but I'll pick important things that they have done. I'll begin with Dr. Tikaram Poudel, who is associated with Kathmandu University, where he teaches, different courses like applied linguistic research methods, and then contemporary theories and master's and MPhil, level of program at School of Education. And before coming to Kathmandu University, he worked as a language scientist and lecturer as a postdoc fellow in Germany, University of Constance, Germany. And there he worked on this ergative alteration in non-past tense in several NIA languages, particularly Nepali. And also he worked on case system, affix, suspension, tense, aspect, modality of South Asian languages. And also he gave several talks in different areas of linguistics in international forums in Germany, in different cities, and then Sweden, Norway, and also Sala, That was Mysore, India, and also in Pakistan later, International Conference of Linguistic Association of Pakistan, Lahore, and then LTI Conference, Delhi. Dr. Poudel was educated in Manipur, where he received his BA and MA from Manipur University, and later he came to Kathmandu, where he took another degree of Masters in Linguistics and bagged a gold medal, and later he did a PhD in Linguistics from Tribhuvan University, and now he is concentrating his research on indigenous knowledge system, national varieties of English, language and society, and etc. So that was Dr. Poudel, and Dr.Suman Laudari, who is an educational design and research fellow at the University of Technology, Sydney, Australia. He specializes in digital competencies of academics in higher education. He designs and delivers evidence-based resources and training to promote student-centered approaches to teaching with technology. His research interests include TPAC, digital leadership in higher education context, instructional design, and digital competencies in higher education. I would like to recall him as Kathmandu University's, alumnus as well, from where he did his master MA in ELT. And Mr. Hom Raj Khadka, who is, I think, very well known, perhaps the most well-known ICT practitioner, user, and campaigner in Nepal. He is an English language instructor in Education Training Center, Rupandehi, Nepal. And he has 15 years of experience in teaching and learning ELT integrating technology. He conducts training to teachers of English at different levels, empowers them for their professional development. Particularly, he works on integrating technology in teaching and learning and motivates teachers to update knowledge, skills, attitude, and maintain quality in education and producing skilled and competent citizens for overall development. He has a master's degree in English and sociology and postgraduate degree in e-learning and online education. He has completed several dozens of online courses in current trends of education and ICT and teaching and learning. And he has traveled to different countries and given presentations like NELTA, LTI, AINet, BELTA, TESOL USA, and also he has presented a webinar in IITFL UK. And now Sagun Shrestha, who is currently pursuing his PhD in School of Applied Language and Intercultural Studies in Dublin City University, Ireland. He has an MA in English Education from Trinity University, Nepal, and MA in ELT from Warwick University, UK. And in his PhD program, he's exploring affordances and challenges of ICT in education. And he has also received Government of Ireland International Education Scholar Award, School of Applied Language Intercultural Studies, and all that. And finally, we have here Dr. Karna Rana, who is an academic coordinator for MPhil in English at Open University and lecturer of English at Grameen Others Multiple Campus. Dr. Rana facilitates teacher training for teachers and students in and about online classes and resources. He earned his PhD degree in ICT in education at the University of Canterbury in New Zealand. He did an MA in education, e-based learning, inclusive education, managing teaching and learning English from University of Bedford, UK. He is one of the editorial members of ELT Chautari, and he has authored and co-authored several academic papers and research articles nationally and internationally. His interest area include ICT in education, digital literacy, research and education. So that was briefly about our panelists. I think that was, I mean, we have a big pool of, academics who are related to working on and practicing campaigning ICT in education in Nepal and outside. All of you, all the panelists, welcome to this discussion. I'm hoping that this discussion will shed light on what it is and how it impacts, and then where perhaps or where we can go along with the integration of ICT and all these issues. Now, before I invite the panelists to share their views, let me set a few rules. We are 5 of us, 5 panelists, and then so we started at 3:30 roughly. So we go until just before 5 because I have to start my own session after 5. So I need little window in between. So I target at 4:45 to complete. So maximum 5 minutes. Each panelist will speak first round, maybe try less than that. And then we will have question answer and other, maybe I'll also raise some other issues there. So before I invite you individually to speak, I would like to raise a few issues here. One is, like ICT is at the center stage now, okay? I mean, the life has been influenced by ICT, this way or the other. But in education, online teaching has been, I think, ICT in offline was there for a long time, but now it has come to online sort of, side of integration and then use. Now, long ago, I heard when I was studying in the UK, I heard that when you use ICT too much, then what happens is teachers stop being teachers. The art of teaching goes. They rather become technicians, using this and that, doing this and that, and asking students to do this and that, but less of the art of teaching is visible in the teachers. So this was something I had heard. And then I was just trying to see if people have, key people have said something interesting. And I found out 2 people saying something about ICT. I would like to quote them first, and then I'll invite you to share your views. This Queen Rania of Jordan highlighted the use of ICT in education, saying, in education, technology can be a life changer, a game changer for kids who are both in school and out of school. Technology can bring textbooks to life. The internet can connect students to their peers in other parts of the world. It can bridge the quality gaps. But a person who actually made a lot of, big change in the ICT field in the world, Bill Gates has a different view. He says, technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is the most important. So, somebody who promoted ICT says that technology is not everything. But Queen, I don't think she's an ICT person, but she's promoting ICT like that. So now, with this, I would like to invite the panelists to share their views. I will maybe I'll begin by inviting Dr. Karna, because he works for a university that is completely based upon the use of ICT, this online teaching. I think his views can break the ice of the discussion. So, Dr. Karna, maximum 5 minutes, about 4 minutes. So please share your opinion or ideas and insights on ICT in education. Dr. Rana.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is really great for me to share my ideas and experiences, of course. I believe there are complexities when we go through the practices reviews, when we go through the knowledge shared by the Western context, particularly because in the context of Nepal, we are just growing. The level of the practice is quite low, and we're just beginning to integrate such kind of facilities, such kind of affordances we are just trying to realize, probably we are just realizing because of this crisis, is promotion of use of these ICT devices or technologies or tools, various applications in education. It's been really highlighted in the last few weeks' time. But the reality, when we go through the opportunities when you were pointing out, sir, the opportunities when we see the practices of Britain when it began using technologies in the classroom in 1980s, the use of computers when they started using computers in teaching English or teaching science or teaching mathematics, they started using this. So that was the record quite different, more than the internet they're using in the classroom. Gradually, when the internet and new facilities or the new kind of features, Web 2.0 features developed after 1990s, then early, let's say 21st century, and a lot of countries, they followed this kind of technology across Europe and America. And of course, European influenced countries, Australia, New Zealand, let's go to Hong Kong, Singapore. So that very rapidly, very quickly spread, and many countries adopted this technology. But when you go to Australia's early beginning, Sumanji is here, I think you will point out. So I found a lot of exercises in Australian schools. The very rapidly developed use of the internet facilities in teaching and learning in primary school, even high school in the early 21st century, first decades. So the records were not so really good, and the reports of researches were not really good, because a lot of researches reported there was a lot of disputes. The misuse of internet facilities, even the primary schools were, accessing pornographies, kind of reports are there. And then after, they had to rethink about the internet connection in teaching and learning in the classroom. So they had to spend a lot of amount of money of the government in that management system, more than the internet provision, because internet became cheaper, but the management mechanism or control mechanism cost huge. And that may be the issue. Probably a lot of researchers, they reported the challenges. But of course, there are facilities or the convenience or the affordance, let's say the capital of this technology, if we try to cast in a right way, properly managed way, probably this becomes really important, because we can't avoid now. So elsewhere, we can't just avoid classroom and technology, because it's been integrated elsewhere, even in banking system, financial systems, or social activities, or in agriculture. A lot of innovations, technologies have come to the walks of the daily life. But in education, it's unavoidable. We have to prepare our new generation people with this one, of course. But the context of Nepal is really complex, because now that we are just beginning to, and we don't have enough technologies in schools, if we try now. So even if it says that roughly the record of internet user subscribers is about 70%, the recent record shows that, but majority of them, about 95% subscribers, they use just expensive data, mobile data, to access this very few applications like Facebook or Viber or emails, kind of Skype in some places. But only 5% of the total population, they have the broadband access in particularly cities. And even in the cities, when you go to computer data record, when you see that, it's about less than 20% students have got the computer in their home. Even the city expensive schools, school children, all of them don't have computers. So even the cities, well, when you go to community schools, but less than 10% community school children have computer in their family. But when we go to the really actual use reports, the researchers have reported, it's less than 4% community schools have such kind of minimum infrastructure to use technology, that computer used in teaching and learning. So it becomes a really bigger challenge. This is kind of figures, recent record figures gives us kind of warning for the people to be, aware of the use of technology. If we apply holistic policy, the countries, or let's say the local government, or the, let's say, provincial government, if they try to try to holistically approach this technology, probably this may be the failure approach, who knows. So that's what I can say that at the beginning now. So maybe this is just a brief, situation of the technology in Nepal.
Okay, thank you. So you have established that, okay, ICT technology is something that we cannot do without. I mean, that's where we are in. Very nice beginning. Now, let me invite Dr.Suman Laudari, who also has a PhD with this ICT in education. The word may be different, it's almost the same. What's your take in this?
I think, thank you, sir, and thank you, Karna, sir, for portraying that background. I think that establishes grounds for us to speak. I've had a few look through the data, I think beginning of this year, around last year. What it says is, obviously, I think the number of mobile phone ownership has gone up, and just to relate to what Karna sir said, and the use of internet has gone up, but it's all based on, data. So the actual connection, the kind of connection that I have here is called NBN, and it's fiber connection. They have 24-hour support. I'm like, if I have problem, I can give them a call and they come and, help us. And schools, have similar support. Now, I think what you said earlier, when to begin this discussion, what you said was, when you start using technology, that art of teaching goes away and you focus, I think your focus remains too much on technology. I think I've got a different view here. I agree, with you when you say that, art of teaching might go away if our focus remains on, replacing maybe, our practices using technology, replacing our face-to-face teaching, not going beyond that. What I would say is, and I think Sagun sir would agree with me on that, is ICT brings a lot of affordances. And what we need to do is, I think the first thing that we need to do here, because a lot of us, I think, have started adopting technology in one or the other way. And we've, asked our students to come online. So what we need to understand is what we're doing right now is teaching remotely, and this is a temporary provision. It's completely different from a very carefully designed, online teaching and learning, which maintains that art of teaching, and maybe in some cases has even better art of teaching than in a face-to-face classroom, I would say, because you can actually do a lot of things from educational design perspective, from pedagogical perspective, that can actually engage the students. But yes, as Bill Gates said, or because Karna sir mentioned about Australia, there's been a bit of backlash about using technology in high school. So I think what we also need to understand is there's a difference between technology used in higher education and high school. So given the age of students, given their digital literacy, between the two sectors, and the kind of teaching that we do, and and the reliance of the learners on teachers and the schools and the institutions, I think those factors come in hand as well, I suppose. I mean, if it's higher education, I would say technology is indispensable, and we can't probably go ahead with what we used to do prior to COVID in majority of schools, or majority of higher education institutions in Nepal. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges with high school. In Australia, they have there's a backlash. I was talking about backlash. They've started banning mobile phones in school. But that does not, however, tell us that they're not asking students to use technology. Like if you go to Canberra, there are a lot of schools in Canberra that don't use any pen and paper. All of the assignments are computer based. Most they don't need to carry any book. The only thing that they carry to school is a computer, which the school has provided. And what they've done is they've installed softwares to limit the access of websites or what Karna sir mentioned about, say, access to maybe say pornographic videos or pornographic, web channels. So they put up, they put such a strict measure on the computer that, you can't access any of those, but you don't need to carry any of your book to your school. So everything is done on computer. So I don't think, use of technology takes away that art of teaching. I think it assists us because technology, has that affordances. But when it comes to our context, as I said earlier, what we need to do is we need to, understand a couple of things. I mean, and, are we doing online teaching or are we doing remote teaching? So there's a difference between carefully planned online teaching and remote teaching, first thing. And there's a difference between, using technology in high school and higher education. I mean, in higher education, students have, some level of digital literacy, or they're old enough to Google or to, watch tutorials on YouTube and be able to use technology. Whereas in high school, we don't trust students. We don't, parents don't trust that the kids can use technology safely. And, not all kids, as Karna sir has already said, have access to technology. And, in high school, I think we've started integrated curriculum in primary. I think Laxman sir spoke about it, I think the other day. Other than primary level, say, grade 3 and above, we teach 7 subjects, 8 subjects a day. So can we manage to teach 8 subjects a day using, online platform? And how do we now, because we don't have now, what surprises me the most is educational institutions barely think that, their teachers need training. I think you talked about it the other day, I think on you shared a Twitter post saying that, teachers are expected to teach online, but there's very limited training. Teachers, when I say teachers, I'm referring to both academics and, high school teachers. So, none of them have training, or most of them don't have, good training around how to use technology, how to use a technology in a pedagogical context. How do I use a particular feature in technology to present a particular content? For example,
okay.
How do
I think there's some disturbance there. We lost you. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, maybe we can come back to you later if you could conclude. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. So art of teaching, and then the differences we need to make in categorizing the ICT use, different aspects there. Thank you so much for this perspective. Now I would like to invite this ICT campaigner who is a teacher trainer. And then he has actually made this ICT online, everything is part of his life. I mean, all of us have done, but he has a different take on that. Mr. Hom Raj Khadka, I think he has also started one, this online teachers group, technology friendly teacher something. So I think he has a lot of things to share with us. So how do you see this technology, ICT in education being used? I mean, is the use judicious for all? Is it practical or okay? What's your take on that?
Okay, thank you, Laxman sir, for your letting me chance to say something about technology and ICT. And before starting my ID experiences in this great platform, I would like to thanks to Scholar Association Nepal, hosted by DNG. DNG would like thanks for letting chance to create a great platform to us to share very important information about ICT. In my understanding, ICT, information communication technology, but I would like to talk more on digital technology rather than information and communication, because we had information communication past time, but in which date and which time technology working together with education, that is most important factor, most important issues to be understood all this teacher and educator and scholastic person. I know that education is a kind of way for transformation knowledge and information, right? But if I recall my past time when I was very young and to stay in my very remote village and a student in time, I was totally limited area. I had no access to get more information. I was very confined area for learning something. And the time I would spend more time for finding some information, find the meaning of some very important issues. Just like in grade 8, I recall one event what occurred in my life. Desert, the meaning of desert to explore for 5 days, I couldn't find the people who describe the meaning of desert. But when the technology were integrated education, it has brought a great dimension in education, and then generating the information and distributing data is extremely enhanced using technology. That's why technology has been added in education in terms of providing information vastly and greatly around the world. So that's why, in my opinion, when technology integrated means digital technology into education, I mean that digital means, and when you click in certain portal, certain site in digital device, we can find thousands of data within 1 second. That's the purpose of education. Our learners are looking for same opportunities, same chances to do so. That's why if we use technology well in our education sector, it brings a bombardment and information, and that is very difficult to hold by us. Thus, in the regard, I suggested to all the teachers and scholars working in education sector to know about what is technology, how technology works, and then how technology can be integrated in our education. It's like TPAC approach most important. TPAC, technology para content writing. And TPAC technology, what technology has brought new thing in pedagogy, right? Pedagogy, art of teaching. And our art of teaching has been drastically changed in terms of our, in favor of young learner, young student, because our young learners are looking for the good opportunity to work in digital environment. But digital environment means where we use digital tools and extremely and widely in favor of learners, serving the very innovative ideas and the very sophisticated way. Not only that, our learners expect their result, what they do in this works of life at the same time, just like it's trained to do the assignment, and what they expect. After doing assignment, they can expect feedback at once. But in our traditional system, there's no system. The constant feedback is impossible in our system. But when technology work in education, just like assign the task and assign some task and some queries to a student, and they join there. And when the task is done by them, they at once get the result, what their roles or performance, where they make a mistake and write over there. That's why, under regard technology, most important. I talk about digital technology, right? In Nepali context, we are in digital divide. We are just crowding and moving to our digital environment. I submit one thing, just like Max Prensky, two-zero theory, right? He is the great president of America, and he has propounded 3 policies that's like digital immigrant, native, and digital wisdom. These most important things to be considered in terms of using technology. But what we are, what am I? I'm the technological, I'm not digital native, I'm digital immigrant, I'm moving to digital circumstances. And when I reach the digital native, and I know about digital wisdom, and what terms technology can be used. In terms of using technology, we must know about the societal impact. If you technology well, what's impact society? Because our learners come to society. If you technology in education sector, we have to care over their right, over the very positive impact over them. Rather, if we leave the negative impact in their attitude, in their learning style, technology doesn't work well. That's why technology most important to use by such person who is know more about meta level, metacognition and digital literacy and meta literacy and transliteracy as well. This is most important for the people. In my Nepali context, I have launched some program in the training center for 50 teachers was conducted online education in my Moodle. I know that after technology, they feel a great privilege, and they have developed a editing culture and searching information day by day and technology. Though they have been living in digital divide, it's still striving, setting up the technological circumstances in the era. and they feel that it's very enjoyable, great and for information, and they are updating information knowledge as well. That's why technology work in this way. Thank you, sir. Sir?
Okay, sorry, yes. So thank you so much for explaining that we have moved from ICT era to digital era because there were other things that we just call ICT, but now we have moved on in a different paradigm of ICT there. Okay, that's a very good setting on how where we have reached in the use of ICT. Now, I would like to invite the young researcher who also has worked a lot in this ICT field and has trained people and developed things, teaching, learning, materials and all. And he is now doing research for his PhD on this affordances and other issues. But because of the coronavirus, his way of data collection is being affected. But because of the ICT, then he is being helped. Okay, so now ICT is now impacting the way he does research. So it's Sagun Shrestha from Dublin City University. So Sagunji, please, can you present your view of your this catch-22 situation that you are at?
Yes, thank you, Laxman sir, and once again, thanks DNG as well for organizing such a conference so that we all had been able to come together and share our views. And thanks participants for coming here to share your opinions as well. Yes, I have quite a lot of things to share. I mean, because the participants earlier had shed lights on different issues. I'll try to combine all things like historical overview as well, my take as well, and my current practices too. So the question earlier was technology as a life changer or game changer versus technology as a tool, like Queen versus Gates point of view. So first of all, I would take technology is just a tool. But again, how you use does matter. It connects to what Dr. Laudari said. Are we using it as a substitute just to enhance, or are we using it as as a tool to redesign your own content as well, which is transformation? If you go back to summer model, which we talked as well. So if we have redesigning literacy, if we redesign the things, let's take a few examples like Kahoot kind of gaming application, which many of us are familiar with. Are we using it just to run the quiz in digital environment, or are we also focusing on the content that we are going to deliver them, taking account of our own learning objective and then the students as well, their own level? If we are thinking from all these different spheres, then you can redesign your own. You can redesign the technological artifact. I mean the tool here, and yes. And in this case, not only, it's definitely a tool here again, but your pedagogy has come first before technology. And the kind of, synchronization actually makes you present your lesson better. So again, it's to motivate the learners, as Gates said earlier. And it's again, to build such amicable environment where technology can be a tool technology comes as a tool to transform. Transformation here means technology came as a tool to create such an ambience in the classroom where there is broader interaction, kind of larger engagement of the students as well. So this is my take. Now, let me give you a quick overview, the historical overview as well. If we see the computer used in Nepal, it was in 1981 to publish SLC result. See, from the administrative part to now in 1992, a new curriculum was implemented, and it provisioned the computer science course as an optional course. So that was a beginning from grade 9, Nepal. If we talk about, again, from the world, like the historical, overview of the world, in 80s, everyday use of computers were introduced. Now, in 1990s, the World Wide Web was given life by the British researcher. Now see, and if we check some of the popular networking sites, for example, MySpace introduced in 2003, Facebook introduced in 2004, and Twitter introduced in 2007. See, now let's see ourselves, how far we have been introduced to this world, and then to what extent we can act further. So still, it seems technology is. Then let me also connect a little bit. Let me also connect, to the, the policies as well. The policy that has focused quite a lot in the policy that has focused entirely in ICT is ICT Master Plan in Education, which is 2013 to 2017. See, and again, it focused on 4 different components. I'm just giving historical overview for our participants and some policy, review as well. Enhancement of infrastructure, enhancement of human resources, building digital content, and enhancing educational system. Again, this was kind of policy is definitely vague, and it was kind of vague as well. Now the latest policy, which is again related to education, SSDP 2016 to 2013. In relation to ICT in secondary schools, the objective is it aims to establish an ICT enabling learning environment, including ICT prerequisites. It's not so much clear, and no policies have so far targeted on, building digital content using our own national language, local language. Now see, English teachers might be privileged, whereas other teachers will be left behind as well. I'm just, giving kind of more overview right now, and I already presented my take as well. So now technology itself is new to us, because even in the global scenario as well, technology emerged. Technology came only in early, let's say in the beginning of 2000. 2003, 2004, 2007, networking sites established, and slowly later we tried to embed. And now again, coming back to our own policies as well, they haven't been clearly stated. And as regards the research as well, if we talk about the research, Dr. Rana's research has pointed out the digital materials in English were not often accessed by teachers, which are where Nepali is the medium of instruction. Now see, only only those people who have got quite a lot of proficiency in English can be privileged, not others. Now, so much confusion is there in relation to our own technology use, in relation to our, in relation to the research as well that portray our own situation, and again the introduction of technology in our own world as well. See the complexity we had. So what it shows is quite a lot of research is needed, and affordances, as we talked earlier. I think to what extent we as a teachers or educators can realize affordances, again a matter. I'm just throwing up quite a lot of questions, only questions after the questions, so that we can discuss further. So I gave the historical overview, the affordances, the realization of affordances as well. Have we realized the social affordances, for example, the interaction that technology can build in between the learners, teachers, and other stakeholders, which we often don't think of, the parents as well, or the other stakeholder in the institution, like school managers. So the realization of the affordances is one thing that which we need to explore. Digital competencies or digital literacies of our own and then of learners, so that having thought of this, we can properly plan our content. This is second thing. So if we are aware of these all things, which not as a researcher but as a practitioner, then we can see to what extent we can use digital tool, and how we can develop our own content as well, so that our content comes first before any digital tool, but still we are using digital tool to transform or redesign the situation, so that we can have a broader level of engagement of the learners as well. That's my take. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for putting your views on this, whether ICT is just a tool or something more, and how we can handle this, use this. Now, teachers, researchers is one thing, but those who work with the teachers, those who produce teachers, teacher educators, I mean, all of you are teacher educators, those who spoke earlier, but I would like to invite Dr. Tikaram Poudel, who is more teacher educator and linguist than a real ICT person, I mean, like with the degrees. So how he sees the pedagogical value, and then maybe, okay, how the education field can actually handle ICT, use ICT to further the educational, achievements that we have made and help new learners, young learners learn better. So, Dr. Tikaram Poudel, what's your take? Hello? Where I don't see it.
He's in the room meeting.
Yes, he's here.
Yeah, he's here. Right.
He's not muted, sir. Okay. Do you hear me?
Okay, yes, I do. Thank you, Laxman, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, panelists and all the participants. When I talk of this ICT, especially the technology and teaching, I just sometimes I get back to my own student life, sometime in early 90s. And when I was doing my master's there in the University of Manipur in India, then we were very excited because that particular day we got that what we call Xerox machine, photocopy machine. And when I see that particular time and when I compare myself today, what we are doing, and this brings a very, these 30 years, last 30 years, lots of things changed, especially in teaching and learning. And I also understand that, as you all do, that almost all the language teaching pedagogies or methods, that what you call, starting from grammar translation method to audiovisual and direct method and communicative approach and all these kind of things. And these were, in one sense or the other, they were integrating different kinds of development of the technology that we used to have. And today, the situation has completely changed now, and we are inside the house and we have no opportunity to go out. But either this way or that way, we have to continue our academic activities, whether it is writing a paper or whether you are editing a journal article or whether you are conducting a conference, a virtual conference like this, or whether you are teaching a particular course. That semester that we have already started, and it was in the midway, and we didn't want our students to be wander somewhere else, and we started continuing. And all these things were challenged. But in spite of all these challenges, we were able to. And one important thing, what I do understand is that we started this online and distance learning education at Kathmandu University, sometimes I think 6 or 7 years back, maybe I think 2013 or 14. And at the time we are using Moodle, and Moodle was our platform, and from there we started. And in most of the cases, we used Moodle as our synchronous type of teaching. That means, as Karna Rana sir also was talking about that Moodle, and we have to upload everything that what we have, our presentation slides, our teaching materials, and the students also used to get them whenever they were, wherever they were. And this kind of things made us somehow possible to do that. But we were also thinking that something like Google Meet or Zoom, this kind of thing. And I'm sure that by the time when the lockdowns are over and we'll go to the classroom, we'll be completely changed person. I know my colleagues at Kathmandu University School of Education, they will completely change their way of taking classes. We normally have our classes in the evening, and most of the cases in bad weathers, it is very, very difficult. And I think we can change that kind of system, and we can do what we are doing now, these kind of things. And another important thing is that I understand that this will particularly change the way that not only by the technology, but also this pandemic has changed. Certainly it will change our behavior, and in that way we will go. But I think technology, as our earlier friends also discussed this one, technology is not itself everything. The more important thing is that how do we integrate this technological advancement in our teaching and learning processes? And everyone is very, very creative, and we try to find out what fits best in our situation. And I understand that some of our students have already worked on in their dissertations, like using mobile phone and using different kinds of social media to integrate in our teaching and learning process, both for the student as well as teachers for the professional development. And in that case, suppose, for example, still we have one important thing I'm wondering is, we still, in a country like ours, in Nepal, we do not have much research on these kind of things. And we have to include more and more issues related to technology and teaching, not only language teaching, but also teaching in general, so that we can integrate more and more issues and we can solve our own problems in our own way. Another important thing that we should create certain kind of pressure group to the government as well. For example, suppose, I think Laxman sir shared one news very recently that NTC has given some kind of priorities for the education or some kind of package, but that was still too expensive. It was something like 500 for 1 month. And I think these kind of initiatives from the government side and government owned telecommunication like Nepal Telecommunication will give some priorities to the students, so that more and more students will be integrated in our learning process. Another important thing, I also suggest that I think Hom Raj Khadka was talking about digital divide issue. And we are doing these kind of things. But what about, suppose we want to, a particular school in Kathmandu, suppose for example, is going online. And what about those students who have not been able to have the access of the online facilities? And another problem I often find from the parents is that in many cases, they do not have more than 1 or 2 devices at one family. And suppose there are 3 children in the same family. If the family has 1 laptop, for example, and the 3 students start the online classes there, then how can they manage it? These are some of the issues. And because of these kind of things, and if it is right, for example, maybe somehow we can solve in cities where with dealing with children who come from economically better families. But for example, what would happen if it goes to the rural areas? Can we do that kind of things? And still, we have lots of problems. And these are the things that we educators, teacher educators, we have to think about. We researchers have to find out, is there any way out to do that one? And another important thing that we have heard, and when we talk of ICT in education, we have heard the radio programs and different television programs. And I was watching television, and just I was playing with the remote, and I found that I think something like Walling television or something like that. And there a mathematics teacher was teaching through on the television. Can we do something like that so that we can reach to much wider and wider? And I understand that the type of changes that are taking so fast, it is beyond our understanding, because to conduct this kind of research, it takes a lot of time. But before that, things change so fast that by the time we find some kind of solution to that particular one, and other problems would come. So we need to be very creative in using these kind of particular issues that we have been finding and we have been facing. And particularly, we like teacher educators, we have to focus on these kind of issues, that how can we reach to the maximum number of children, especially those children who are marginalized. We have many children still. We have lots and lots of children. Dropout issues are there, especially from the rural areas, and especially even in the cities, those children who come from the background who do not have very high economic background. Those who come from slums, those who come from subaltern marginalized groups, those who have been not have the advantages of. How can we address those kind of issues also? And I think these kind of issues, and how can we collaborate to solve these kind of problems with the government? And one important thing that should the government do some kind of things? I don't think that so far no government agencies has come to address these kind of issues, although our schools are closed for almost for 2 months now. And I am certain that our schools will not open for next 2 months. And we may have regular classes.
Okay. I
Okay,
think
thank
we
you,
have
sir.
lost you for a while. Okay, thank you so much, sir, for raising the issues. And I was actually going to raise the same issue of that reaching out to those who cannot afford. Yesterday morning, one of my cousin brothers, we say in Nepali, from my village called me and then said, what you are doing? And I said, okay, I've been busy, teaching online and all this. And he said, you people are creating a bigger digital divide than before, because you are teaching to elite class students, and then the huge chunk of population is outside this. Then one day, one group will be high up there and the other group will be low there, down there. So you are doing injustice, he said. And I said, I know this, but I'm doing my job. But we're also thinking of this. That's how I saved my face. This digital divide is something. So how we can bring the ICT for the good of those rank and order, that what they call marginalized people, and then poor people who have no access. So I think that's a good issue. And also the one study carried out by the Teach for Nepal was shared in one of the meetings like this, online meetings. Only 3% of the students who came from the public schools that they did a survey on had Wi-Fi connection to proper computer device at home. And then 16% had television with cable connection, 45% had television connection, 65% had radio at home, and 95% had a mobile phone, but it was not a smartphone. Okay, so then with the 3% people having Wi-Fi, I think this is an issue. This online connection is an issue. But ICT has got a broader dimension. Maybe we could talk other things. Yes, anybody with the questions?
Yes, sir, I have. Yes. My name is Hom Raj Khadka.
Yes.
And I do have a question, sir. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for your minute observation on ICT and insightful ideas and use of technology in education. My question is for Dr. Karna, who has a doctorate degree in ICT from the University of Canterbury, New Zealand, and academic coordinator of Nepal Open University. Dr. Rana, in your observation, where is Nepal's position or say situation in the global scenario regarding the use of ICT in education? What initiative the government of Nepal should take immediately to regulate the teaching learning activities in the ongoing pandemic situation? And for long term, what suggestion would you like to give to the government? First question is this. And my second question is, people are often heard blaming teachers that in the name of using ICT in the classroom, teachers are in fact bringing some PowerPoint slides that are pretty much colorful, and they present them. And because of this facility, teachers have been lazy these days, and their horizon of content knowledge has been diminished due to the PowerPoint and such facilities. How do you address these kind of practical problems? So please address these two questions, Dr. Rana.
Thank you, Pushpaji. Exactly, fantastic point. I was, before your question, I want to, somebody there, I think Deepak Rice, he typed one statement I would like to connect with yours. You see, he pointed out that's where the policy about this government, is government silent on this kind of matters. So it's really important point I want to connect with you, how it goes to the remote. So I've really, I think, I don't know that how much deeper I have gone. The government, I mean, Sabunji was pointing out these kind of things earlier, is still analyzing a lot of policies now at the moment. So actually when the government's, the education plan or the ICT in education plan, so whatever the curriculum 2005 framework, 2007 framework, IT policy 2000 or before that. So a lot of policies, they just reiterate the same idea. And they, I mean, 2005 curriculum framework introduced that ICT as a subject to be taught in school and as a tool to be used. And 7 they reiterated. And then after ESSRP, then after ICT in Education Master Plan. Even now we have just drafted ICT in Education Master Plan 2nd. Now it's in the review. We have finalized. I've been leading that 2nd Master Plan now. So it's quite interesting to share the experience now. How you were pointing out, that actually what the government has the intention is really, I can't criticize now, but our intention, the long-term 2 decades intention through the policy, when I have to say this, I think just bringing NGOs or depending on such kind of development NGO organizations to equip schools, rural schools, or the government schools with ICT infrastructure and just, one slot teacher training in remote villages or one, so when they do have the connections with each other. So I think it doesn't make sense how to address what you were pointing out. Where is the position? That's where the position is, okay? That's where the position is. And if we say this one in 2007, that Open Learning Exchange and Ministry of Education signed MOU to equip rural schools in Nepal, and then after equip teachers with ICT skills. So in 2016, when I went to those schools in 5 different districts in Nepal, in 7 months' time, I spent a lot of time with them, teachers and schools there. So it was quite surprising. Since 2007 to 2016, they reached in about 234 schools, but majority of the schools, they received technology. The technology was dead. Let's say about, I don't have actual percentage, might be about 20% to 25% schools were still using the technology, and they were still working in that way. And they were not going to the old schools, they were going to the new schools. And there are certain regions. And you know, the NGOs or development organizations, they do have their own interest. And they were working with some missionaries. So they were working with WFP, World Food Organization, to equip the schools because they bring the funding and they go to the new school. But when they go to the old school, so they don't get funding. So these sort of things, and government relies on that way, relies on them. And government does not have a specific plan to equip these all 36,000 schools. Let's say government schools about 28,000 schools. So there is no proper plan. But it claims that there are about 10,000 schools in the country, high schools, they have equipped with ICT infrastructure. But it's, 2 or 3 computers they have donated. So they say that they have donated. So that's the status, I have to say this. And how can we, teachers are blamed with, how can we address these kind of things? So unless we make some kind of holistic project, okay, the government has a specific project. Even the master plan 2nd does not say anything else. I was fighting with these sort of things. Even there are government, secretaries or let's say other, policy makers involved in this kind of things. But me and another colleague is there from Tribhuvan University. We drafted and we discussed a lot. We had a workshop with so many stakeholders, so many teachers from government schools, so many teachers from private schools, and university teachers and policy makers. So we drafted and we got so many feedback, and we're going to do this one. So I don't know that government is going to on. And another thing is that the last one point I want to say this is teachers are blamed with the PowerPoint policy.
Please keep it short, sir.
Okay, shortly I want to say quickly, I want to answer the last one. So teachers are blamed that they bring PowerPoint in the classroom and they just enjoy the time. Okay, this is the reality. I think this is what reality is that. So we got the technology somewhere else, and the technologies are not designed particularly for teaching and learning. We know this. So that's where the issues came up there. Why teachers are enjoying that way? So because Sumanji was pointing out, Sagunji was pointing out, Dr. Tikaram sir was pointing out. So these sort of things where the reality is the basic, the minimum 5 literacy technology says that. ICT, when we say ICT is not applied science in our education. ICT is applied science. The meaning of applied science in ICT is that's in the information and technology, what computer designers, program designers say. But in education, this is allied science. This is allied science. And to ally the science, we need to understand the quality of technology. And teachers need to understand minimum level of literacy. That's the information literacy, how to obtain, how to filter. Minimum, I mean the computer literacy minimum, digital literacy, what Hom Raj sir was pointing out. So what we need to, that the media literacy, we need to information literacy, so communication literacy, all these kind of basic 5 literacies, the teachers don't have these kind of things. So how to use these kind of technologies into educational practices. That's, I think, somewhere else we need to start, I think, to equip the schools and teachers and bring some kind of realization.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Rana, for the nice response. Here, there are a few questions from Lakshmi Sharma and others, and also Jonas, which are actually, Jonas has a different take, and Santosh, which are actually raising the issue of, marginalized, families not being able to afford the ICT or online education. And then one of them says, the question is to Tika sir, but I think Tika sir himself raised the issue. So I would like to divert this question to our government representative, Mr. Hom Raj Khadka. Please make it short because we have very little time left. So can you make it in 1 minute or so? I mean, what is the government preparation for, reaching out to those who are, who we are talking about, that they should be benefited?
Okay, thank you, sir. Very interesting, very nice question. And what is the effort and what is the position of government level for the using technology in our education sector? I mean that I have visited a lot of schools in different parts of the Nepal, just like Banke and the other district as well. I have found a technological equipped classroom and rooms there, but they haven't used properly. That is one case. Because there is no manpower to use the technology well. A lot of devices are there. Wi-Fi is there, connected there, right? But they haven't used well because I think that there is a less manpower. The human resource is not sufficient for handling, for regulating technological tools, right? That is one case. Next case is that government launched the one policy, that is ICT policy 2013, right? And since then, we haven't know anything about government. Government has done a lot of things in favor of technology, but we haven't received the information well. Because the role of us is to implement the policy of government by ourselves, because we are government employer. What's my role? I know about the policy of government. I implement a real education, a real sector, what I'm working there. Next one is that government launched next policy, 2019 ICT policy, right? It's also about the virtual classroom and Skype meeting. A lot of the policy has been framed and drafted there, right? How they are used. Nobody are prepared, nobody are ready to launch new things, to update the skills and knowledge information. In the regard, how can you object to the policy of government? Government doing a lot of things.
Okay, so you are saying that the government has spent money, but the human resource, lack of human resource, lack of readiness in the teachers is impeding this implementation of the plan. Fine. And here, there's one interesting issue. Is there any research on the readiness of children to be educated through online in Nepal? I mean, okay, use of ICT, whatever. I think this question might go to Sagunji. Because yes, the question is there any research on the readiness of children to be educated through online in Nepal? I mean, you don't have to refer to any research, but what do you think the readiness of the students to be educated using online or ICT?
Okay. Thanks for the question. I will also link a little bit to what Karna sir and Hom sir said earlier, let's say while responding some questions as well. First of all, research is lacking, no doubt. Like, if we check the results related to barriers of using, let's say, technology or affordances of technology and as such, like there's almost, let's say, there's very limited research. There's almost no research, let's say. So research informs our practice, by the way. And if there is no research conducted, neither it can inform our practice, nor it can inform the policymakers to, create good policies. So, or design good policies. Primary thing, the first one. Second one is like, let's say, we think technology too much at times. Like, there has to be some, because we talked of access and equity kind of thing. Jonas also mentioned earlier in the chat box. Our situation is, our current situation is like only in, let's say, urban areas, there are some technological infrastructures, again, not to that level. And in other local areas, there's no technology. This is the reality. We need to act accordingly. For example, designing the local modality of the, education. Now here, the first point can be, I'll also link this to, your question, Laxman sir. So now, probably government has to start thinking, building digital repository, digital materials repository, so that it's not only, it's when we talk about technology, it's not exactly like we need to take technology in the classroom and then teach them using technology. A big no. I mean, why I say a big no is to reach out to those people as well who are in the far-flung area. If government has, created the repository where teachers can contribute or some designers can contribute there, even those teachers can, go through those repository, download them and use them, and again, make them get engaged. Like whichever modality that suits, we need to go for this. Now, how about the readiness of students, by the way? See, first of all, we are not sure.
Please keep it short, eh? Keep it short. Okay.
We are not very much, let's say, aware of the digital, literacies. What digital literacies do teachers need to have? As Karna sir pointed out, information literacy, like critically evaluating, managing information, and and what digital literacies are we, what digital literacies are we focusing when we design some activities to make our learners get involved? So if we're not sure of that, how can we simply think like, we can make our learners get engaged in this? So first of all, we need to, I guess the government has to, create a good framework of digital competencies so that teachers are aware of their own digital competencies, and they will be aware that what digital competencies are required for the children to be, to be engaged in the teaching learning activities. So only, by knowing this, own competencies, I think like we can act rationally or, yeah, in a proper.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, some questions are here are actually adding to the point that teachers are not ready, or as Homji says, there's a lack of human resource. But in the PhD thesis that Sumanji wrote, you were indicating that teachers and teacher educators try to learn ICT and digital literacy despite the lack of resources. So here the issues are contradicting. So how would you answer?
I think so. My data came from some very limited teacher educators. So it's not to be generalized. So I think I've got a couple of things here. So the first thing is when it comes to school teachers, or for example teachers like who Tikaram Poudel sir or you yourself are teaching. And I think it's a question for you both and other people teaching MA B.Ed courses. Question for you to think is, how often do you ask your students or discuss very explicitly how, why, when technology should be used? So, it covers all of the areas, first thing, because there's very limited discussion in the MA course, in the B.Ed course. Talking about myself or Sagunji or Karna Rana sir, he's nodding his head, and many other colleagues, I'm sure they will agree with me. We've had very little discussions around why and how and when technology should be used in teaching English in the first place. So I think that leaves us, up to ourselves whether we want to use technology. If yes, I think a lot of effort has to be self-initiated. Now, to answer your question, yes, I did find in my PhD research that teachers had used technology, but these were limited teachers. And if you dig deeper into my thesis, you'll also see that there were teachers in some context who had some technology use, but technology access, but their use was very, very limited to, administrative purpose. For example, in one context, they had, I think, very good access, but their use of technology was limited to, administrative purpose, more of, assigning, giving assignments, giving feedback. So there was, in fact, very little discussions around why and, how technology should be used, so that teachers are, and I think that links to Sagunji's question, are teachers actually ready to teach, educate kids to use technology? I think we have limited time, so I think I'll leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And now I'll ask Tika sir to finally sort of maybe respond to or further raise your issue. I think we have to finish by 5. We have 3 minutes there, so 2 minutes for you and 1 minute for me.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think, I don't know what I will be telling you in just 2 minutes, and I have been reading so many questions there in the chat box. One important thing is that I raised the issue of especially the marginalized children from marginalized communities, and another issue, many of the participants are interested in teachers' preparedness, and yes, that's the issue. And I think our finance minister is coming up with the budget for the next financial year. And I think they will also consider some kind of budget there, especially in education, and especially leading to this kind of ICT kind of issues that to address. And our Ministry of Education will come up with some solid ideas. And this is one thing. And another thing is that when we come to the issues of marginalization, and it is just not in the case of ICT or in education, there is also other kinds of issues that they have been fighting for, that they are struggling for. And what we have to understand is that those marginalized groups, those living in the very remote places, those who do not have access to ICT or other kind of things, one important thing is that those kind of things should be included in our the broader democratic values that we have. And every democratic nation must have that. Every sector, every individual of the country has the equal right to live with equity. And this is what we have to include. And just giving some arakshan or reservation to one particular person or another, we cannot bring them to the mainstream. And this is not just an issue of the ICT here, but it is a broader issue. Once we can secure, they have enough food to eat, they have good place to live in, they have a school in their surrounding, they have teachers in their surroundings, and they have medicine when they get sick. And unless we can have the security of all these kind of things, ICT or education, these are the just behind things. We cannot go with all that kind of things. First, we have to secure all those kind of things, and only we can think. And this is not only teachers can do. We teachers cannot do, but we teachers as the most educated person, most conscious person, they are aware of the issues, and we can bring these kind of things to the children as well as to the government bodies, agencies, and whatever we call. And this is our duty as the teacher.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. Now we began our discussion with the use of ICT in education and whether ICT will take away the art of teaching and all that. And then we moved on, and then finally we came to a point where we have raised many issues, mainly regarding ICT use and social justice. I think that's where we arrived. The government and the educators need to work on this a lot. And here I would like to end by just referring to a question that says that we are perhaps now overemphasizing ICT. Mindawarji writes here that we are taking use of ICT as an end, not as a means. I think the idea of Bill Gates was the same. I mean, ICT is a tool. Digital platforms are tools. We should use them for social justice, for furthering educational agenda, and then improving the way education is taken and given, or improved. Okay, with this, I would like to request all of you to allow me to end this session here, because there's another session which I have to run. It's already 5:02, and we'll take a little break in between, and I'll come back and then start the presentation. So presentation has been very lively, thought-provoking, many different ideas there. Maybe the participants have more questions. Maybe if you have many questions, why don't you write a blog post or any writing something, sharing. If nowhere you write a letter to the editor, that's what you can express, because all these issues are not private issues, they are public issues. We need to write, share, so that the government or non-government sector will hear, and maybe something will happen somewhere. Okay, with this, thank you everyone, the panelists, all 5 panelists, and the organizer, Teachnlogy, who represents Scholars Association of Nepal, and all the participants, 100 plus, because I